So I've recently been getting back into collecting games for the original Game Boy, among others, and I've been getting really into these custom plastic cases for storage from a company called CustomGameCases.com, and they make these cases that are very similar to the ones for the original DS, except that they have a few modifications. They're clearly based on the same design. They have the same dimensions. They're the same width, same height, same length. Um, but the major difference is that it has clips for both the Game Boy Advance and Game Boy games. You can't really see it too well, I think, here, but it's actually like a two part clip, very similar design to the one in original DS games. You may remember there's like a space for the DS cartridge itself, and then there was like an extra space that they put. You could stick your Game Boy Advance games in there if you like. It was just a nice little bonus thing. So if you really wanted to, you could use original DS cases and modify them uh, for your Game Boy Advance games. So the deal with these is that these are effectively a storage solution for your Game Boy games. It's very difficult to find original Game Boy games, not only with the box, but with the box in decent condition. And if you play your games reasonably often, it's a big, you don't really want to be opening and closing the box all the time, trying to take them out, and then you ruin the box. You risk bending it, you risk folding it, destroying it. It gets worn, looks bad. These are a good solution for that, actually. These I'm quite impressed with them, actually. They look fantastic on a shelf. They're a good way to keep your things organized, and my favorite thing is that they just have this built-in clip for your manual, because I like to collect games with the manual. I don't really like to collect them with the box for the aforementioned reasons. But if you're like me and you like having something to keep them in, but you want to keep the manuals and the game, I mean, these are perfect. Um, they run about, I think if you go to his website, it's customgamecases.com, I believe. It's actually printed on the inside of the case, somewhere behind the manual here. Let's see. Yeah, customgamecases.com. Um, I think they run like 550 a piece, so they do get a little bit pricey. If you're filling in a lot of games like I am, I'm slowly filling in my collection as I go. Basically, every about once a month or so, I'll order 5 or 6 of them, and I'm kind of gradually filling in the gaps in my collection to the point where I'm going to have a nice full shelf of these sooner or later. Um, but what you're really doing is you're paying for the print of the label and the box itself. I do have a few criticisms about these boxes, which I will get to, but I just wanted to show off a couple of these that um, I really think some of these look amazing. Like these Donkey Kong Alleyway. So a lot of the first party Nintendo games all have fantastic labels. This Nemesis one looks really good. Um, like near authentic. If you look real close, you can kind of see some um, perhaps defects in the printing. I don't think they really show off on this one, but um, I do have a few here that I will um, see. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera or not, but here's another one I really like is Balloon Kids. This one looks really good. Um, I have noticed that some of the reds and pinks they look a little fuzzy, but I think that's just a consequence of the printing process. I think it's very my understanding of it is that it's actually very difficult to get red to look good if you don't have uh, like a serious printer. Um, but I mean, they look, most importantly to me, if you have them all lined up on the shelf, they they look real good sitting next to each other. Like all the labels. I'm a really big fan of when these little top label bits line up, when the logos line up down here on the bottom. I just think these look great all next to each other on the shelf. I have them all alphabetized, and I'll perhaps later once I have another order coming in of like 15 of them right now because I spent my Christmas money to get boxes to fill out the majority of my collection. So I'll probably take a video of that at some point. But to move on to some criticisms of the boxes that unfortunately not all of the labels are created equal, and I discovered this kind of too late in the game. I'm not quite sure what accounts for this. My understanding is that a lot of these labels are actually pulled from a website called thecoverproject.com. They have a lot of user uploaded custom cases, and I think they have one or two different templates that they use, and one of them kind of looks better than the other, and I will get to that here in a moment. I pulled out Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters, which is one of my favorite games from my childhood. These are actually two games that I owned as a kid that spent many hours playing these on my Game Boy. So you may not be able to tell in the video. The Kid Icarus one is not the worst offender by far, but there's something different about it, and I'll put them side by side so you can look at them. But the aspect ratio of the artwork is slightly off. It's stretched a little too wide. It's not, you don't really see it unless you like you really look at it. But it's in person it just looks a little bit off, and then some of the print quality suffers as a result. I think just the resolution kind of messes up some of the there's some fuzziness on the lines that makes it look a little bit inauthentic to whatever degree that matters to you. The spine looks very good. Like the spines on all these look fantastic. I would say that I don't think there's a one of them where the spine actually looks bad. And that's, to be honest, that's kind of the part that matters, because that's the part you're going to be seeing most of the time. But what seems to be the major difference to me is that if you put them like kind of on top of each other like this, you can see that on the Balloon Kid, the Game Boy logo space is almost a 25% or so wider than the logo space on the Kid Icarus one. And as a result, I think the designer had to stretch the artwork over to kind of fill in the gap. I really think this much wider one looks a lot better. It looks a lot more like how I remember the original boxes looking. I haven't really owned an original Game Boy box in a long time. But it's really just kind of a crapshoot which one you get depending on what game you're buying, because they only seem to have one option. Actually, they do have other. Now that I'm thinking about it, they have some like some black border options, or like the spine is black, and I think some of those have different artwork. But for consistency's sake, I've only been going with the silver one, so it may be different on the black spine style. I'm not sure. But this is how the original Game Boy cases looked, so that's really what I prefer. Like I said, it's not really egregious. Some of them are worse than others, but I think this, they look fine from the side. Like that's all in the correct aspect ratio. That looks good. The spine portion here, the little Game Boy logo, is the same on both of these, or close to it anyway. I will say that I do kind of like the drop shadow that these ones tend to have. Like they have it on the front cover too. It's got this little drop shadow on the side that this one doesn't. That looks pretty good, but if I had to choose, I'd rather the artwork be in the correct aspect ratio. It would look better than otherwise. So I don't have very many Game Boy Advance games. I pulled this one out because this is kind of another one I have some criticisms about. Again, it probably is not obvious in the video, but the print quality on this one is kind of poor, and I don't actually know. Let me rephrase. I think the print quality is fine. I think the original scan of the box art for Tactics Ogre probably wasn't very good. It's a lot more obvious on the back. I can see where the Tactics Ogre logo looks really fuzzy and kind of not good. It looks very much like a LaserJet. Same with the screenshots were probably not super high resolution to begin with, but these look pretty bad. in person, which is a shame. However, there is a major difference here. If you're playing a Game Boy Advance game, obviously, or if you're storing a Game Boy Advance game rather, it's half the size of a regular Game Boy cart, but it fits into this same groove. The little side notches just kind of stick out in this middle open bit here, which it's a really pretty clever design that they actually. I think this is more or less how it looks in the DS case. I think they just took like two of that mold, and then put them upside down against each other, and it perfectly holds a Game Boy Advance game or a Game Boy game. These are much easier to to retrieve from the clip than the Game Boy games are. I don't think I showed that off in this video, but that is another major criticism, is that the Game Boy games, the original Game Boy games, are pretty difficult to remove without like physically bending the box a little bit. It's kind of hard for me to do with one hand because I'm holding my phone with the other. But if you buy some of these, you'll see immediately what I'm talking about. If you like completely seat the game into the clip, it doesn't quite release without a little bit of force. And the manuals, some of them are like, I feel like the Game Boy Advance manuals are like just a hair longer than than a lot of the Game Boy manuals are. This one especially is very thick. So the edge kind of comes right up against the side here, and it's actually easy to close the cover page of the manual in between the two, the back and front covers of the box. You can actually just take the manual and turn it, and it will sit vertical. I just don't like to. I like it to be in this orientation, so when I open it up, it's just there. But that's just me. So I kind of tend to put a finger in here when I'm closing it and sort of make sure it doesn't get caught in between so it doesn't damage the manual. I also have this one. I will say this is probably one of the worst looking ones that I have overall, because I mean, you can kind of see it's got the same problem as the Game Boy, the original Game Boy ones, I think, where it looks super stretched out to me. Like Kirby looks really like flattened this way and wider than he should be. Same with the you can really see it on the little includes tilt control circle here. It's like an oval, and it seems like it should not be that way. The logo looks fine. I'm not really sure if somebody perhaps like redesigned when they did the cover, like redesigned the whole thing and maybe just reapplied the logo just to kind of make it fit the aspect ratio. I'm not really clear on what happened here. I just don't think it looks, and the print quality is really not very good. You can kind of sort of see it, especially in the pink on Kirby. You can kind of see where like the laser jet artifacting, I guess, is more present. But again, I think that's just part of the printing process. The case itself works just as well for these kind of awkwardly shaped Game Boy Color games as it does for the regular Game Boy games. Same thing, the manual fits in there just right. Let's see. Yeah, it's hard. Even this one it's got this little ridge you can kind of grip on top, and it's still pretty hard to get out. That's really the only major problem with these. It's just, and it's really kind of depends on how big of a deal it is to you. I don't think it'll damage the games in any way, but they are in there tight, which is kind of a good thing. Like, they're not likely to fall out or rattle around if you move the boxes, if you move your shelf, if you pack everything away. It's not gonna fall out and rattle around in there and scratch the cover and screw it up. So, yeah, overall, I'd say I would say maybe just look closely at the printed box before you buy, if this matters to you. If it doesn't, then I'd say these are a quality buy for any kind of storage solution for your Game Boy games. They do make cases for Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo. I think they even have Virtual Boy cases, which are cool. They have a lot of options for other cartridge-based systems. I'm just talking about Game Boy because these are the only ones that I own. I haven't really invested in getting cases for my Super Nintendo games or anything because I don't really have very many of those, and I don't really take them out very often anymore. I don't see any reason to really display them on my shelf. I sold my NES collection off years and years ago, so I'm not buying for those. That would be a I think if I were at a different point in my life, I would have done it. I would have probably kitted out my whole collection with cases like these for my NES games, and that would have been a nightmare for logistics and price. But as far as storage is concerned, these you can't beat them. These are great. Uh, Again, it's customgamecases.com. Highly recommended, especially these. I am in love with especially with these like first party Nintendo games like Alleyway, Donkey Kong, Balloon Kid. These all look like they just came off the shelf. Um, I really love them. It really kind of reinvigorates my interest in my Game Boy collection. I'm definitely going to be buying more of them. I'm going to try and outfit. The more of these, the more Game Boy games I collect because I'm kind of getting back into collecting them lately. I'm going to try and outfit every single one, get manuals for them, and have like a real nice curated Game Boy collection. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I will say too that they do have occasional deals. I know they have a Black Friday special, which I sadly missed. I think it was like free shipping or something. I don't remember, like buy two get one, something like that. Would have been a fantastic time to take advantage of it. So maybe the guy that runs it, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but I've emailed them a couple times and they've been very helpful on like correcting orders and asking, hey, do you guys have this or will you have this game in stock? Because they don't have everything, of course. And it is all made to order, is my understanding. So just don't be afraid to contact them if you want some kind of special deal or not special deal, but specific request for these things. Anyway, thought I would just talk about a matter of interest to myself. And this is also an excuse to test out the camera on my new phone. So hopefully this will end up looking better than the previous videos I did. So maybe let me know if it's better or worse, or if you think this is a product you'd be interested in. Anyway, thank you.